In this video, I'll be sharing with you a requested tutorial on how to cut an inbuilt corset dress. So if you haven't yet subscribed, please hit on the subscribe button. Now to start, here is my pattern and we're going to cut out the front first. You need your shoulder to bust, under bust, shoulder to waistline. For your blouse length for an inbuilt dress, you measure 5 inches after your waistline. Now this dress has a sleeve and I'll mark my shoulder divided by 2 plus ½ inch. Now I'll come down by 1 inch here, mark a basic neckline of 3 inches, and I'm going to go ahead to connect my shoulder slope. So after this, I'll mark a basic neckline of 3 inches by 3 inches and I'm going to connect. After I'm done connecting, I'm going to find my chest line. And to find your chest line is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. Now I'm going to place my ruler and I'll draw a straight line at that point. Now, the measurement you have at the shoulder, which is your shoulder divided by 2 plus half, go ahead to place it here. Why we're adding that ½ inch is because this dress has a sleeve. Now I'll draw a straight line connecting up. Now I'll go ahead to divide my chest line into 2. Come in by ½ inch. Here I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4. That is your round bust measurement divided by 4. Connect from that point to ½ inch here, and you're going to take this all the way to the upper part of this pattern. Now after you're done marking, you're going to go ahead to outline this. So I'll go ahead to outline my pattern and we'll go ahead to start marking our dart for this dress. Now for the dart for this dress, go ahead to mark your nipple to nipple divided by 2. My nipple to nipple is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5 inches which I marked from the upper part of my pattern to the lower part. Now you want to mark your dart intake. I'll be marking 1 inch on both sides. If you're working for a plus size, you can use 1.5 inches, or someone that has bust, go ahead to use 1.5 inches. Now I'll draw a straight line connecting. After that, I'll go ahead to outline. Now after I'm done connecting, I'll go ahead to place my curve through and I'll connect from the bust down to the under bust. Repeat this same process at the other side of this pattern. Now after I'm done connecting, the next step I'll take is to divide my shoulder by 2. I'll place my ruler and I'll connect this all the way up. After I'm done connecting, now you're going to determine where the neckline or yoke will start. You can place your tape from the shoulder and measure, or you can decide to go up from your chest line. Now if I come down from my neckline, I'll be using 6.5, but if I go up from my chest line, I'll use 1.5 inches. So measure yours and check what is okay for you. Now I'll be using 1 inch for my dart intake on both sides and I'll go ahead to connect. Now if the person you're making this dress for is slightly big or on the bigger side, you'll be using 1.5 inches on both sides, or you'll use 1 inch at the center part, the dart for the part coming in, and then 2 inches for the side. Now for this dress, I'm going to come down by 1 inch from my chest line and go in by ½ inch. Now from there, I'll connect to my under bust. From here, I'll go ahead to use my free hand to connect because I want to get the curve I want here. So the neckline is not that deep, so you can just go ahead to use this 1 inch after the chest line. Now mark your nipple to nipple divided by 2 and add half. But if the person's bust is on the bigger size, you can mark the nipple to nipple divided by 2 and add 1 inch to it. After that, place your ruler and you're going to connect from the bust down to the under bust, or from the bust down to the under bust. So from here, I'm going to connect it down going towards the armhole area, and I'll go ahead to use my marker to connect this. Then I'll also go ahead to connect the other side of my pattern and outline it also. So this is what my cup looks like, and I'll just blend this out at the upper part. Now after I'm done doing this, the next step I'm going to take is to insert my measurement. So I'm going to go ahead to mark my bust circumference divided by 4. So for the dart intake, if you take this part, you will have an excess. So I'm just picking the part towards the bust area, and I'll replace, then add half. This is an inbuilt corset and you don't need much allowance. I'll mark my under bust circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace, and add half inch for my sewing allowance. So at the waistline, if you want to snatch your waistline, let's say my waistline is 28 and you want to take out 2 inches, you want to use a direct method, minus 2 inches from your waistline, divide it by 4. My waist is 28 minus 2, I have 26. So if you divide 26, will give you 6.5. Then measure 2 inches of the dart intake you took out. If your dart intake is 3 inches, you will replace it. Then add half inch for sewing. Going down to the hip line or the blouse length, you will mark your hip circumference divided by 4. Then measure this dart intake you have here, replace it, and then add half inch just for joining allowance. The dress is an inbuilt corset, so you don't need much sewing allowance for your pattern. I'm going to go ahead to connect this all the way down, and I'll connect it to from the waist down to the blouse length. So now after this, I'll just go ahead to outline my pattern. Now I'm going to mark my bust dart. To get your bust dart is the difference between your shoulder to waist in front and your shoulder to waist at the back. My shoulder to waist in front is 17, while at the back is 15.5. So if you take out 15.5 from 17, what you have is 1.5. So that is how I got my bust dart, right? Now here I'll come up by 2 inches. After this, I'm going to place my ruler and I'm going to connect this all the way to the other side. So you can decide the type of hemline you want, but for this dress, you just have to use a basic hemline because you're not making it as a blouse that you wear on top of a dress. Now I'll just go ahead and outline my pattern, and after this we'll just go ahead to cut it out. As simple as that. So if you have any question, please go ahead to ask. Now I'm just going to go ahead to cut this out. So while cutting out, you have to also go ahead to blend this part to make sure it matches. Now cut out your yoke. You can also go ahead to tighten your yoke, but to have a yoke that is not so tight on the body, you can just leave it this way. Now I'll cut this out and I'll keep this aside. Go ahead to cut the rest of my pattern, and I'll also blend out the darts when you're cutting out the cup and the side. So after cutting, we are going to move over to the back pattern. Now for this back pattern of this dress, I've gone ahead to mark out my measurement, which includes my shoulder to bust, my shoulder to waist, and my blouse length. Now my shoulder to waist at the back is 15.5, and I added additional 5 inches to the length of this blouse. Now you start by marking your shoulder divided by 2 plus half. From here, you come down by 1 inch. So after this, I'll mark a basic neckline of 3 inches by 1 inch. So after marking that, I'll go ahead to place my ruler and I'm going to connect. Now, after I'm done connecting, the next step is to go ahead to connect my shoulder slope, and I'll mark. Now, I'm going to go ahead to find my chest line, just the same way we did for the front pattern, which is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches, which I'll draw out a straight line there. Now, go ahead to place your tape here and mark your shoulder divided by 2, place your ruler, and you're going to connect. Now, I'm going to go ahead to place and divide what I have here into 2, come out by ½ inch. Now, I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4, place my curve through, connect from here all the way to that ½ inch I came out from, and I'll connect this up. After I'm done marking, the next step you're going to take is to start marking your dart. And to mark your dart, I'll be using my nipple to nipple divided by 2. My nipple to nipple is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5. I will mark and I'll go ahead to draw out a straight line. After I'm done marking, you want to start marking your dart, sorry. So I'll be using a basic dart intake at this point, which is ½ inch on both sides. Now you want to connect this all the way to the upper part and also connect on the other side. Now I'll also extend this down and also take this to the lower part. So you can use about 4 inches to 5 to extend it to the lower part. After this, I'll go ahead to use my marker to outline this. Now the next step is to insert our measurements on this pattern. At the bust, I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4 and add ½ inch for sewing allowance. Remember that waistline we used for the front pattern, that's what you repeat and mark here. Now measure the dart into replace, then go ahead to add ½ inch here. Now I'll also mark my hip circumference divided by 4 here and I'll add half. Note, we are just adding ½ inch for sewing allowance. For this dress, is an inbuilt dress and you don't need much sewing allowance for the pattern, unless you want to like add an allowance but you're still going to shape it out. But for an ideal inbuilt corset blouse, you don't really need much sewing allowance, just your joining allowance from the front to the back. Now I came down ½ inch at the chest line and I'll connect it down, I'll connect it up back to the chest line area. This is to avoid your lacing area to pop up while putting on the dress. Now you want to go in by your desired measurement here, either 1.52 inches or 2.5. Now I'll draw a straight line connecting all those marks. Now I'll also go ahead to outline and just make a mark to indicate. Now I'll outline the neckline of my dress and the armhole. After this, I'm going to go ahead to come down by about 1.5 inches. This is not a standard. You can go ahead to just change what you want at this part of the yoke. So I connected this also to the that line, and from there I came up by ½ inch and I slanted it. This is so that I can tighten my yoke. Remember, the ½ inch I'm coming up from is starting from the chest line, so that I won't have gaping at the yoke of this dress and it will relax very well. So I'll also come up by 2 inches here and I'll go ahead to connect it back this way. Now after I'm done connecting, I'm going to go ahead to use my scissors to cut this out, and after cutting this out, I'll go ahead to explain this skirt pattern. So if you have any question, you can still go ahead to ask. Now after cutting my back pattern, this is what I have. Now let's move to the skirt pattern of this dress. For the skirt pattern of this dress, you need like your waist to hip measurement, which is about 7 inches. Then you measure your waist to knee line, which will be serving as a guide, because of the skirt pattern. At this part, it needs to like fit you very well. Then I'll go ahead to mark my skirt length and at least 2 inches allowance at the lower part. So this is the measurement you need, and I'll go ahead to place my ruler and draw out those lines. Right now, this is my knee point, my hip point, and my waist. So this is not the actual measurement of my body. I'm just using it as a guide. So from the knee, I came up by 2 inches. This is so that when you're drafting your skirt pattern, you're going to have a fitted look. A fitted look at that point. I'll mark the waist circumference divided by 4 and add the sewing allowance. You can use at least 2 inches for your sewing allowance. Mark my hip circumference divided by 4 and also add the 2 inches sewing allowance for your skirt pattern. Unless you're using an inseam finishing, you apart from that, just add your sewing allowance. Here, whatever I have on the hip, I'll minus 2 inches and I will mark. That is your hip circumference divided by 4 minus 2 inches from its mark, and add back your sewing allowance. This is just to have a fitted effect. So from that measurement you have on your knee line, that is what you also extend to that 2 inches you came up by from the knee. Now I'll connect from the hip to the waistline, and after connecting I'll also connect from the hip point down to the lower part of the knee. After I'm done connecting, I'll connect back to the knee part of this dress, and then I'll take that measurement all the way down the skirt. So this is what I have. Now after I'm done marking this, I'll just go ahead to cut it out. So I'll just go ahead and cut this out, and after cutting this, you need this pattern to cut the back part of your skirt, and I'm just going to go ahead to cut this out. Now to cut your skirt, you place this on another pattern and add like 2 inches 1.5 for your zipper allowance. So I just added a zipper allowance to mine when I was cutting. So for the back part of this skirt, you need to come down by ½ inch and connect. This is so that your zipper will not pop up at the back of your skirt. You know, when you make a corset, the skirt is always going up. So if you minus that ½ inch, you will not have that at your skirt pattern.